All right, hello and welcome. This is gonna be a just quick trade review. If you stick around, great. If not, no worries. This video is mainly for me. But if you do stick around, you're gonna see some of the things I've been trading lately, and we'll go over what kind of things I'm looking for. So we'll start with LEN. This is a home builder. I got into this one down here, first entry. I actually got into them before earnings. I did take a little bit of a risk. I like the setup though. It was a top side resistance level breakout entry idea, and then we got MACD doing the zero crossing here. So zero crossing, we break the top side resistance. We're approaching this trend line on good volume. And that is why I got in that day. I actually got into this, I think, above the line here, and by close it had completely retraced on me. So I remember thinking that day I was like, man, crap, I just bought a false breakout. Held it through ER, and it ended up working out for me pretty good. On ER day, you can see we popped through real nicely. I wasn't sure if the ER pop was just going to be momentary. For example, we pop one day, we retrace the next, or if we pop and then we're just steady. The next day, I actually went ahead and I added to my position. I was just as ready to sell my position as well if we started to retrace too much. But so I added to my position right here, and that's all she wrote. So from there, we went into this nice little consolidation pattern in here. This is actually, this bar we see right here is actually resistance from 2007 highs, and we'll go ahead and we'll back out here just so everybody can see that. You can see here from 2007 highs. Let's go back to the daily. So it was, kind of consolidating around in here. I knew it was. I knew it was healthy. For some reason, I had actually moved my stop loss, like around on these days right here, I had apparently moved my stop loss up higher than what my break even was. I had added at 50-50, so I wanted my stop loss to be at 50-50, which would be right here. I had moved it up here for some reason, and it just barely took me out of this position. So my stop loss took me out of this position. I really didn't even want it to take me out. I knew that I was probably going to jump back in, and then a few days later, bam, I jumped back in at the close right here. Just because it looked like we might break this bar right here, and my idea was I'll trail it with a real tight stop loss. And then what do you know, going into today, they were up 3% pre-market. I think it was due to an analyst upgrade. So this is what I've been looking at. Just real quick before we move on to the next video, to the next equity. Notice that I got out right here. And I was honestly expecting an RSI bounce off of this uniformity line. You may be wondering what this green uniformity line is. It's not drawn the best at the moment, but essentially it's take the last rally where that rally broke down at. That's where we draw a uniformity line. I believe this uniformity line actually came from the weekly, but nonetheless. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the weekly just real quick. Yeah, so I was right here. That uniformity line did come from the weekly. So I was saying, on the weekly, we got a buy signal here, and ignore this. This is just coming from the daily, but we got a buy signal right here from a top side resistance breakout, and now we're about to have a uniformity breakout. Again, a uniformity breakout is, look at the last rally. Where did that rally break down at? How can I get in for the next rally? And that's essentially what we're doing here. And so we got the first entry here, not a bad entry. And then second entry would be on the uniformity break, which would be this week. So this is actually looking really good to me, and we're breaking on decent volume. So we like this, and I think that we're going to be able to rumble here and get some good gains. So let's go into the next one. Okay, so the next two we're going to cover are airlines, ALK and LUV. I'll try to go through these a little bit quickly. So this one, my dad had mentioned it to me, and it looked like they had some room to run. I mean, they're down here at 80. Recently, they were up towards 100. So I'm thinking, I can get at least a 10% move on this. This is not generally a breakout that I play. It really is more of a swing trade, I'll be honest, more of a swing trade. I got in on this bar right here. This day is actually when Delta Airlines released guidance before their third quarter earnings report, which they actually just released earlier today, I do believe. I got in at 78, and quickly I was in the money quite a bit. I was feeling really good about the trade. And then yesterday was the anniversary of the S&P. Sorry, not the S&P, of the Black Monday from 1987. And for whatever reason, the market decided to gap down and just have a pretty poor day. On top of that, I think United American Airlines, or whatever it is, they had a pretty poor earnings report. So that really drug down ALK on this day right here. And as you can see, it took me out at my stop loss, and my stop loss was at break even. And then, of course, today we're back up. We were back into the 80s earlier today. Is what it is. I'm not too worried about it. I will just real quick draw two things I was looking at. I figured, hey, if the RSI can, bounce off at this point right here, we're good to go. If it can bounce off this point right here, we're good to go. It didn't do either of those, but it's just something I was thinking, thought I'd mention. Before we go on, I also noticed there was bullish divergence right here. Price action making lower lows, while RSI actually shows strength coming in. Even the MACD kind of shows it as well. But nonetheless, so wrapping this up, the last thing I wanted to mention was I thought the volume in here was pretty interesting. I had recently just finished a book on volume price analysis, and I at first I was thinking, maybe this is like an accumulation period all the way down here. I wasn't really too sure. I haven't had much experience applying what I read in the book yet, but I thought I'd just mention that for when I am going over this. Okay, we're at the 7-minute mark here, so I'll try to speed this up a little bit. My dad had asked me about LUV. He asked, what do you think about LUV? And I had said, and that was on this, we're looking at this price action right here, and I said, hey man, if they break 59, 58, they're seeing a wall of sellers there. If we can break above that, I'd be bullish. And then I said, if we can break above 59.75, I'd go ahead and put a buy order in. And what do you know? The other day, they broke above that price level in the morning. This is so embarrassing. I literally bought the very top of this peak right here. The very top. I think I got in at 59.75. And I was down like 3% yesterday when the S&P was tanking. A little scary. I need to hold though. I knew as long as we don't go below this point right here, we're fine. You can tell that they're just in a consolidation range right here before they have the opportunity to break higher. So I would expect them to break higher. So that's a thing. In hindsight, how could we have prevented this? Let's go down to the 5-minute chart. So I bought into this spike right here at the very top, and I was just looking at the daily when I bought it. I was like, hey man, they're at 59.75. I mean, that's our price point that we were talking about earlier. Well, I mean, if you look at the RSI, while I do not hold the common wisdom that RSI of 70 or over is oversold, we're all the way up here at 90 RSI in the 5-minute. That's not sustainable. This thing's going down. That's exactly what happens. So in the future, if you think about entering in the very first 15 minutes, check to make sure the RSI is not above 70. By outrageous amounts. So that's just something to note. Again, I should not have bought in the first 15 minutes of market open. That was foolish. I got to stop doing that. Every single time I do it, I pretty much regret it. Either you buy in the very first minute or you wait for the first 15 minutes to pass. It's kind of what I've noticed. So we'll go ahead and we will move on. I actually think I've done a video on LUV before. In this area right here, and I was actually talking about how this price action right here looked a little weak. Buyers were failing to step in, and what do you know? A week later, we start this downfall here. So that video might be worth checking out. Okay, enough with the losers. Let's talk about some winners. This is a trade that I recently just closed out of. So Let's look at the original idea I have, just so we eliminate any bias. A quick 30-second, what was I looking for? We were looking for a wedge breakout here to the upside. We notice how I say buy over 1985 and not just buy here. Why? We want to try to eliminate false breakouts. So that's what I did here. Ended up working pretty well. What are we looking at the RSI? So the RSI, we're looking at my signature top side resistance breakouts, along with a bottom side, bottom side support aiding it. We actually would call this a swedge breakout, SWEDJ, a swedge breakout, and these are very powerful, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. So notice I said the MACD, you can't see it, but okay, now you can see it. It says horizontal MACD like this can be very powerful on breakouts. So let's see how this performs. Bam, I mean, it performs pretty well. So let's go ahead and review why. So I got in once we're breaking over here. I think I got in on one of these 2 days on above average volume, and we're breaking out here. On this day right here, I was actually starting to get a little bit nervous with this trade. Why? Just because we began to pull back. I knew that if it broke below this low right here, it might be a little bit worrisome. At the same time, though, I knew that this had been going up for weeks with nothing but green candles. So there was going to be, expected to have a little bit of consolidation. And what do we know? The next day, just bam, we're up 8% the next day. The reason why this is up 8% next day, they released guidance. Rookie trader me actually had no clue they were releasing guidance the day that they did. Yeah, I figured the guidance would have already been released with the earnings report they had recently given out. So that was a shocker to me, to be honest. We're really glad it happened because bam, now we're up. I actually sold at close. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at how I handled the sale of this. And I know that we're at the 12-minute mark now, so I'll try to speed this up a little bit. So the 13th is the day it happened, and market open. Okay, so essentially I had started looking to sell up in this area. I was thinking, okay, weekend risk. I want to eliminate weekend risk. North Korea could do some stuff that causes the markets to tank on Monday. So let's go ahead. Let's lock in some of these gains at the least. We're also sitting at 22 is actually all-time high resistance. So I knew that I should probably take some of my gains. I'm at this resistance level. So I had put a stop loss at 21.90. It took me out on, maybe this candle right here. And then I had trailed that I'd put another stop loss in for the rest of my position at 21.79. I said, hey man, if it starts to tank at close, from smart money selling, I'll just listen to the smart money. I'll go ahead and get out. So smart money went ahead and they took me out at 21.79 is what it is. And we'll just go ahead and let's do a little bit of analysis here. Really, I don't have much to say about the price action recently. We're going higher. That's all I can say. But I'm out of it. I got a nice little gain, so let's go on to the next one. Actually, before I do, notice how the MACD broke out of this triangle right here. I was saying this might act as resistance because we tried to go higher here, but we failed to go higher. So as such, I'm going to mark that as resistance. And we actually went higher there. So also, let's just note on the RSI how it bounced on, what day is it? This day right here. Well, one of these 2 days. It bounced on this RSI line. I think that's kind of interesting, something to note. You can even note that, notice how my cursors are lining up here with this point of contact right there. It even bounced right there. So these are just things to look at. When you're looking at RSI, look at the last highs and see where it might bounce off of. So on to the next one. So this is a trade that I got into earlier this week. Well, last week maybe, kind of looking to be a dud. I got in on this break right here. So we have a MACD 0 line crossing. We have a trend line break. If we look at the RSI, the RSI was a little sloppier, but it's Amazon. I was willing to take it. We have a uniformity action breakout. It's the green line. And then we have a topside resistance line. It wasn't the best signals. I wasn't too confident in them, but I figured that you know, it might be worth a go. So as you can see, it looks like we might be breaking down, and that I might have to get out of this one this next week. So that's the thing. I'm in at 19. Sorry, I'm in at 995, not 982. So a little bit down. You know, maybe a percent or so. Next one. Actually, before we go into the next one, let's actually look at the weekly real quick. Notice how the RSI trend line on the weekly is getting rejected right there. I know these lines aren't matching up perfect. They just weren't drawn for the weekly. But it's something to look at. You know, we got rejected right here, so there's no reason to be bullish on them, really. So I might, you know, go ahead and get out of this one. Okay, and then this one was a massive runner this week. I had this idea from a scanner that I had. I really wish I would have gotten in, but I didn't. I alerted it in a group me that I'm in, and some of the guys in there got into it, but not me. So let's go ahead, let's review real quick what I was looking for. So we were looking for a uniformity breakout. Again, we're looking at the last rally. Where did that rally break down at? It broke down right here. Okay, if we cross this level in the future, that's the start of a new rally, and that's what's going on here. So notice how we have a double whammy. We have a topside resistance breakout, which is a little weak because there's really only 2 points of contact on it. But then we also have a uniformity breakout. So that's a buy, 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 buy. Price action confirms the breakout. Volume confirms the breakout. The zero crossing on the MACD also confirms the breakout. You can also see here we tried to move higher in the price action. We got rejected. And then as such, this MACD can act as resistance. And bam, we blew right through that MACD the day after the breakouts. So this one's looking pretty good. I would expect some consolidation or a little bit of a pullback maybe to this line next week or something. So that'll be interesting to watch out for. Let's go ahead and get onto the line. Okay, this is one I got into, 2 days ago. The rectangles indicate what day I got into it at. So this is similar to a normal breakout I would play. I would say my confidence level on this one's a little bit lower. I knew that this one had room to run. You know, let's just say from 90 down to 80. You know, if I can get this thing from 80 to, you know, high 88s, then this is going to be a great trade for me. I might look to take my first profits around here if we're stalling. I might also look to add to my position right here. So we'll see. We have a topside resistance breakout. It's a little sloppy, I won't lie, but I was willing to take it. This is actually, we could call this a swedge breakout as well because we got the bottom side support here. We're breaking over this last high here on the RSI, so that's a good sign as well. We're getting some okay volume in here, not really what I'm expecting to see for a breakout, but I'll let it slide for now. You know, there could be dark pools in the background actually taking this higher, and we're just not seeing that volume. But you know, our MACD is approaching zero line crossing, so it's looking good. I would say this is very bullish, except for this candle right here. I'm not liking this candle too much. That means sellers really stepped in today and drug this one down a little bit. Here is the hourly for today's price action. So nothing too bearish, but definitely nothing too bullish. And we'll finish up with the weekly on this chart. The weekly on this chart's not looking too shabby. You know, a little bit of oscillation here. Hopefully we're breaking to the upside. Hopefully the MACD is forming some uniform action down here to go ahead and give us some liftoff. I would define that as a zero line crossing uniform action. So this one's looking pretty bullish, not as bullish as BDX, but we will see. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it was so long, but if you liked it, leave a comment. If you want to see more, go ahead and hit the subscribe button.